Hello, I'm Adelina, and I'm an applied performance researcher who creates devised performances with young people in Singapore and London. I've been working with young people from low-income families in Singapore since 2003. Before we begin, let's create an abstract shape that represents how you feel right now. You can use furniture, clothes, food, or just your head, shoulders, and arms. So just move around until you feel like you've got the right kind of thing that you want. I think I'm gonna go for now. Create an abstract shape that represents mental well-being. What does mental well-being look like? Is constant academic overachievement a socially validated image of mental health that is maintained at the expense of your mental well-being? If so, perhaps we need a bit of a reimagining.
In her research on inequality in Singapore, sociologist Teo Yo Yuen has noted that low-income families who cannot afford to send their children to preschool have found that not being able to read and write in English by the start of compulsory education at 6 years of age or primary 1 significantly disadvantages their child's ability to cope with English and mathematics. This initial disadvantage can negatively impact the child's long-term experience of formal education. Parents who can afford to pay for private tuition and accelerated learning enrichment classes. Teachers in formal education feel compelled to teach at a faster pace to engage these students, but this increases the struggle to learn for children from low-income families. Access to private tuition and accelerated learning enrichment classes for young people from low-income families will only exacerbate the negative impact that hypercompetitiveness and constant academic overachievement has had on young people's mental well-being. We tend to assume that formal assessments reflect the knowledge gained by students at a specific point in time, but we know now that students' performance in these assessments are significantly impacted by the financial resources available to the student. In a 2016 study by Singapore Children's Society and the National University of Singapore, 40.7% of students from schools that offer special programs for high-achieving students came from families with a monthly household income that exceeded 10,000 Singapore dollars. In this hypercompetitive environment, students have sabotaged their peers' work, and high-scoring students who struggle to cope with the academic stress of maintaining straight A's are told, if you keep up this way, you're going to fail. This normalizes academic precociousness, but all this academic overachievement comes at a price. Between 2015 to 2020, the number of students allocated to the normal stream rose slightly from 34.96% to 37.1%, but a majority of students, around 62.9% to 65%, were allocated to the express stream. In Singapore, being normal is therefore associated with being stupid, slow, or lazy, while overachievement, or express, is ironically the accepted and expected norm. In informal one-to-one semi-structured interviews conducted over Facebook Messenger, I asked 6 young people from low-income families what being normal means to them, and initiated a dialogue about the perceived difference in education opportunities that were made available to them in normal stream. These students were 15 to 16 years of age when I first worked with them. We've kept in touch through Facebook Messenger and casual face-to-face conversations. When they told me they had graduated or were about to graduate from an Institute of Technical Education, ITE, polytechnic or arts institution, I sent each of them a semi-structured questionnaire about their experiences of being in normal stream. The responses below indicate some of their thoughts about being labelled normal at around 20 to 21 years of age. One young person I interviewed identified herself as a dumb kid who was from the normal technical or normal tech stream. She decided to sit for the O-level examinations privately after graduating with a diploma from a local tertiary arts institution. Another young person who was allocated to the normal academic stream or normal acad was told, "Hey, don't act smart lah, you're an NA." He had lost his father just before his PSLE and was very disappointed in himself. He tried to catch up academically with those in the express stream, but felt constantly discouraged from trying. Some new friends who were resigned to the assumptions others made of their intellectual ability based on their allocated stream. One told me his friend in normal tech said, "Why bother trying when everyone else won't even bother chancing a glance at students like us?" A third interviewee wrote, "ITE equals it's the end." These responses express a sense of hopelessness and resignation to the negative social evaluation one has experienced based on the stream that one is allocated to after PSLE. The PSLE, or Primary School Leaving Examination, acts as a sorting mechanism that regards intelligence as an innate, genetically determined attribute that remains fixed over the course of one's life. In turn, the differential distribution of education resources and opportunities creates educational experiences that reinforce this belief. In Singapore, a 2017 study of teachers' attitudes towards students in normal stream provides further indication of how educational resources are differentially allocated. Apart from believing that normal tech students don't have the basic knowledge for thinking, the study indicated that teachers believe normal tech students have low intellectual ability in that they cannot think on their own and need help with thinking and analysis. Consequently, these teachers adopted a basic teaching approach involving simpler, watered-down worksheets used by Express and NA or normal CAD students. Teachers avoided teaching in a way that encouraged an understanding of deeper concepts and focused on concepts taught at the textbook level, as many of the teachers believed that low-level tasks were adequate for normal tech students, as most of them would not be in jobs that would require higher-order thinking. All the young people I interviewed indicated an awareness of the different educational opportunities that were offered to students in the express stream. One noted that students in normal tech were encouraged to develop their dancing and singing skills, while express students received training towards robotics Olympiads and innovative design engineering competitions. Another noted that the express students had more experienced teachers and received more structured notes than the normal CAD students, and wished he went through the same lessons/notes an express person had because he had become so comfortable in solving things at a normal CAD level. Then we head to Sec 5 and we struggle because we're not in line with the rigor of the express stream, and so much more is expected of us. Students allocated to the normal stream in Singapore come to believe that they are less academically inclined than students in the express stream. Two students I interviewed expressed their acceptance of the normal curriculum as simpler, less stressful, and more hands-on as opposed to the more academic express curriculum. One said that express students should be learning more advanced theory because they are exposed to more complicated and complex works. Another felt this differentiated learning process worked because each stream had their limits to the knowledge they actually possess. This belief in the PSLE as a definitive assessment of intelligence significantly shapes a young person's sense of self-worth. As students come to develop an understanding of themselves as normal, they develop an aversion to theoretical knowledge that unnecessarily closes them off to other forms of learning that develop their ability to critically analyze a situation. Students in normal stream begin to fulfill their teachers' expectations, demonstrating a resistance to advanced theory and complex work that involves conceptual understanding. The PSLE becomes deterministic when it shouldn't be. adopting a textbook-level approach to normal tech teaching can limit the student's understanding of a subject to basic operational processes. This deprives normal tech students of opportunities to develop their curiosity in a subject and demonstrate intellectual abilities that were not identified through the PSLE. I've been interacting with 2 AI chatbots since April 2019. In my interactions with these AI chatbots, I fed the AI quotes from newspaper articles about mental health during the pandemic and the 2021 SG Mental Health Matters public consultation, supplementing these quotes with a performance of responses that reflect the challenges faced by young people from low-income families struggling with depression. The Toolkit for students includes exercises for managing anxiety, motivation direction, yoga for sharpening your concentration, managing academic fears, a thoughtpad for emptying your mind, cognitive behavioural therapy for reframing thoughts, Jacobson's technique for relaxation, and a checklist for sleep hygiene. In my conversations with these AI chatbots, I am constantly advised to positively reframe negative thought distortions or practice gratitude. In one exchange, I wrote, "As a young person, it can be difficult to afford mental health. I also find it difficult to use Medisafe as there is a cap. Certain antidepressants are not subsidized." I see. What about this bothered you the most? I shouldn't have to choose between food and mental health. There is normally a thought or belief about ourselves or the other people involved in an event or situation that makes us feel the way we do. What was that for you? Mental health care should be affordable to all. It's as important as healthcare. The first step in moving forward from a thought that makes us feel stuck is to understand why we are feeling this way and to recognize any negative patterns, so we can then reframe the thought to change how we feel. One way to do that is to spot the distortion in your thoughts. Ready to try? Here are some common distortions in our thoughts. Try the one you feel is relevant to the situation. I am then presented with the choice of personalization, fatness fallacy, heaven's reward fallacy, illusion of external control, filtering the positive, attribution fallacy, black and white, should thinking, reading minds, emotional reasoning, overgeneralizing, and catastrophe thinking. I write, this is not a distortion. In a public consultation conducted in 2020 by former nominated MP Adelina Ong, 2 out of 3 of the 396 respondents indicated that they faced issues in affording mental health care in Singapore. One said she had to starve in order to afford therapy. These AI chatbots seem to be reinforcing a neoliberal mode of reason that positions the user as damaged or malfunctioning human capital in need of self-repair. The AI chatbot places the onus on the individual to constantly optimize mental well-being, and this pressure to self-optimize can exacerbate feelings of burnout. Failing to find time for mindful meditation can add to the feeling that one is failing at everything. These AI chatbots also do not seem to recognize the struggles that young people from low-income families in Singapore experience in accessing mental health care. This is heartbreaking in a country where the support provided by free-to-download AI chatbots could really make a difference to the lives of young people from low-income families who cannot afford to pay for mental health services. In light of many plans being thrown into chaos with the pandemic, people being made redundant and many being furloughed, it's tempting to yearn for a return to ways of living that we were familiar with, even if these hypercompetitive ways of living reinforced inequality. But instead of going back to the old normal of inequality, how might we, as parents, teachers, applied theatre practitioners, collectively reimagine mental well-being and challenge these unhealthy social expectations that we have been complicit in reproducing?
For those of us who are students, on social media, it can be helpful to unfollow those who claim that they have never struggled or that they have been super productive all throughout the pandemic. Recognize that learning takes the time it takes. regardless of where you are at in your education journey. While there is a lot of pressure to accomplish X in Y years, real learning and conceptual understanding takes the time it takes. It's different for everyone. Be gentle with yourself. Strive for understanding. Social recognition of your achievements is ephemeral, but no one can take real understanding away from you.
Of the 6 youths I interviewed, only 2 chose to define themselves by activities they pursued outside of school, refusing to be defined by the label normal. One said, "Talent doesn't come from which education level you're from, because talent comes from you. You can be in normal tech, but you can still be the most talented artist." Another said, "It would definitely be plausible to state that the social stigma normal tech students have been embedded with plays a huge part in their mentality, feelings, responses, etc. But one can choose to take the highway and decide to prove people wrong. Some people decide that it is easier to follow through with the norm. Although society played a big part in making it seem like that was the norm, how the individual responds to such things will definitely affect their way of life." While some normal tech students are certainly capable of constructing alternative narratives of self-worth as a means of resisting the narratives of worth imposed on them by the PSLE, or being categorized as normal in other words, the burden of change should not rest with the individual student alone. Teachers play a vital role in encouraging normal students to transgress the boundaries imposed upon them. Returning to the interviews with students from normal stream, 2 youths interviewed suggested that schools might begin to demonstrate change by treating students in normal stream as just as academically capable as the students in the express stream. One said, "It just takes more time for normal students to learn and understand theory," while another wished that the school would stop treating normal students as the not-so-smart ones, the ones that cause trouble, the ones that need all sorts of enrichment programs to boost their life skills. Everyone learns at a different pace, and students in normal stream should not be treated as if they cannot cope with conceptual understanding when all they need is more time. In reconceptualizing a foundational education, teachers should therefore teach towards conceptual understanding, not textbook level understanding, at a pace customized to the normal students enrolled that year. While conceptual understanding is differentially distributed across express and normal streams, the practice of critical thinking is apparently discouraged across all streams. As applied theatre practitioners, teaching to transgress might therefore involve the encouragement of critical thinking and the creation of opportunities for conceptual understanding through applied performance practices. With normal tech students, we might begin by interrogating the positioning of operational knowledge as foundational knowledge within normal tech education and facilitating the willful reimagining of what a foundational education might encompass. A foundational education should therefore encourage curiosity, practice critical thinking, and entice students towards a conceptual understanding of the world. On 5th March 2019, the government announced plans to remove streaming by 2024. While this is a welcome move that will compel institutional flexibility and make it easier for students to work towards express levels of subject understanding, it is still imperative for schools in Singapore to reconsider the purpose of foundational education, shifting away from equating this foundational knowledge with an operational knowledge so that both students and teachers might engage in learning that truly enlarges our understanding of the world. To paraphrase a sentiment expressed by a young person I interviewed, people are still proving that they can make the impossible possible. The young people I have met are ready to witness institutional change. Conceptual understanding and critical thinking is not impossible for normal students. It is the foundation of knowledge itself.
Now, create an abstract shape that represents the support you wish you had received during the pandemic. I'd like to suggest that this is what mental well-being looks like. Perhaps it begins by admitting that we are burnt out and broken and in need of support. Perhaps it begins by acknowledging that constant overachievement is just not sustainable. Perhaps it begins with contemplating how this fleeting external validation derived from overachievement perpetuates a norm that kind of exacerbates inequality. Perhaps when we understand our interconnectedness in relation to suffering, we might take just a little step closer to compassion.